This video is for business leaders who want to level up their creative workplace culture. Do you feel that creativity is a critical variable of success and leadership in business? If you do, you're in good company. Some examples of authors I really respect who fit into this category and obviously value creativity would be Ed Catmull, who's the co-author of Creativity Inc., a book I highly recommend. Read the book if you get a chance because it really gives you a great perspective on creativity. Another guy who does this is Jim Collins. He did so in his book, Great by Choice. He talks about, I believe he called it empirical creativity in that book. So he talks about creativity with respect to leadership too. And another one is a book that I just finished, and that was Robert I. Sutton, who wrote a whole book about fostering creativity and culture in his book called Weird Ideas That Work, that I just did a book review of last week or the week before. All of these well-respected academics, as well as combination, not just academics, but also real life leaders who have done a lot of business themselves, as well as teaching business, agree with you. Creativity is a critical part of business and leadership today. It's probably always been something that leaders should have paid attention to, but it's more important now than it ever has been. Creativity is essentially the differentiating variable that sets you apart as a successful leader, a passable leader, but a more successful. The most successful leaders integrate creativity into their leadership, and especially in the case that they are running or involved with innovative companies and innovation. Back in the 1950s, the economist Joseph Schumpeter talked about it as creative destruction, which is when new innovations basically destroy or displace old innovations in a big way. Now, the examples used the car as the primary source of transportation. When it took over from the horse, basically you don't need a saddle for a car. You don't need feed for a car. You don't need people to shovel the horse poop for cars. So a lot of the industries that were disrupted or destroyed or nearly destroyed when horses went from essential and primary transportation to cars replacing that. And this goes on all the time. This is why as a leader, and especially in any space that has innovation in it, it's really critical that you have creativity, because otherwise when the next thing happens, if you don't have the creativity to adapt or do something different, your industry could get wiped out overnight by an innovation that's sort of broad and sweeping as the car was in replacing the horse. Watch to the end of this video to get bonus material on 3 ways to expand or even explode your creative thinking within your company, and my recommended video on how to expand creativity space with something called framestorming. If you want to know what that is, watch the video. Really what this comes down to is building a culture of creativity at work. Creating a culture of creativity at work should be started the day a new hire is brought on. You should convey it to them on their very first day so that they understand that this is how we do things around here. Creativity is part of what is expected and part of what we value here. If you don't do this intentionally, it's the same as other things we've talked about before. If you don't intentionally create a workplace culture, a default version will evolve organically, and it will reflect our evolutionary default, which I've talked about before in my acronym CLONE. Comfort seeking, lazy, overeating, negative, and emotional. Simply put, it'll basically be jungle rules. That goes for culture in general. I'm just specifically talking about the facet of culture, which is likewise making your intentional culture include creativity as an essential part of it. When you think about that, what's the jungle rules? Well, that means the fittest and strongest survive by eating those who are weaker, think kinder, and less devious or more ethical, and less self-serving or more cooperative. In the evolutionary past, that made sense. It's like, well, I'm bigger, I'm tougher, I can eat you and you can't stop me was good. But now being kinder, more ethical, and more cooperative in a workplace will actually get you further. But for most of evolutionary history, that wasn't true. The desirable things which make a great workplace culture and a great creative culture today were irrelevant or even a bad thing in our recent evolutionary past. Does this sound familiar? Because most leaders let the default, and by familiar, I mean, what is your workplace culture like? If you're a leader, which is who I'm targeting by doing these videos, maybe this sounds familiar. Maybe you go, why is the culture of my company so crappy? Why is there so much backbiting and politicking? If there is, as the leader, it's your responsibility to fix that, and it was your responsibility to create it intentionally, because that default default. I know of no personal exceptions to this. Unless you do it intentionally, it will always be that lowest common denominator, dog eat dog kind of culture, whether it's for the creativity or for your workplace culture in general, the politics, the manipulation, the backbiting, the taking credit for other people's work in that. And that's where the other side of this goes. If you let that happen, if you allow that to happen, and you are in any way aware it is happening, you have to let those who are doing it know that we don't do that around here. And if you want to do that, you have to go somewhere else and do it. So it goes both directions, but easier to create something well from the ground up than to have to reverse and break it down and encourage strongly people to change or let them know they're going to be fired. That's not an easy situation. It's much easier to do it right from the beginning. Most leaders either inherit or allow the culture of their workplace to grow organically. This is a mistake because it will always go back to that same thing. If anybody who watches this video knows of exceptions, I would love to hear about it. I'm always interested in learning something new because we all don't know what we don't know. While things growing organically is great for vegetables, it's really, really bad for the long-term success of companies today, and especially innovative ones. So thank you for watching this far. We're on to the bonus material. The 3 ways to make your culture creative is allow and encourage direct and autonomous communication between any 2 members of your organization. Every employee, from the janitor to the CEO, should be allowed, without supervisory permission, to talk to anybody else. That is, the janitor should be encouraged to talk to the CEO. And you should be, if you're in marketing, you should be able to talk to engineering or sales or any other department, and somebody above you, somebody below you, anybody at all, you should be able to talk to without an appointment, without departmental approval. All of that is a waste of time and is in getting in the way of your creativity because it creates the silos we see so often in corporate culture. You, the bosses, it's your fault because you're not doing anything to change it. That's the default, and it is not good for our companies, and I assure you it's not good for the employees, and that's why 70% of people are disengaged at work. We kind of let it happen. The second one is to foster interaction across departments by design. So this isn't just permit them, create a situation where these kind of interactions happen. The best example of that, Apple headquarters, the buildings are designed with large open spaces where people can and do interact and can and do cross paths with people from any and all other departments. They also have common areas and restrooms located strategically so that interaction across departments is inevitable. If you put a restroom right next to each department, that department will only use that restroom and they will never go near the other departments. That's bad design. So that's what I mean by design. Design it into the building, design it into your office layout, the structure of things, even cubicles if you use them, in such a way that people must pass by others to get to a lunch area, a common area, or the restroom, so that interaction, somebody goes, oh, hey, Jim, come on over here, because they happen to see them and then can interact. I have a question about the engineering specs because I need to sell this, and this could be really important to my client, that kind of thing. So you want to make that inevitable by the design, the actual structure of your building or the layout that you put to it. Third is to go many steps further. The 2 I've just talked about were all about interaction, but you can and should go many steps further than that. And by that, I mean do things much more intentional, like create large social events that are worth attending. You know, having a crappy cake and some stale chips and say, hey, there's a party, go attend, is not an event worth attending. Make it an event worth attending that people want to come to, and that can be created intentionally. Many of these events can and likely will happen outside of work hours, but they should be events where people go, well, you know, it's just a lousy party at a company with people I work with. I don't want to go there. Then you've done something wrong way back in your culture or in the design of the party. And during those parties, you also want to have that cross-departmental interaction, whether it's literally games or fun activities or different things to get to know kind of games, things like that. Bingo, I don't care what it is, something that is appropriate and works for you and your company so that people want to come, but you should make some of them actually happen during work hours and not rushed. Years ago, I worked at a Chinese school and it was like, okay, we're going to have a Christmas party. Yay, yay. Okay, it's time to go home. It was like an hour of sort of awkward Christmas party because it's not a tradition. mission there to make us feel at home, I suppose, was the idea. And it was a nice thought. But then it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock or whatever. Okay, everybody, got to go home. We got to work tomorrow. The ending was far worse than the event. There was nothing wrong with the event, but the fact that it ended suddenly and abruptly. If you're going to have a function at work, make it at least, I would suggest, 2 hours to a half day, and that they are permitted and welcome to be there. There may be some emergency exceptions, but that isn't everything. You're not going to have them that often anyway. Make them worth being at and make it so that people actually feel like this is a fun treat or break from work when it happens, that they're happy to attend and interact in a different way with their coworkers. If you do this 2-hour half-day thing for people and they enjoy themselves, you'll build relationships within work that wouldn't exist across departments probably only a few times a year. Quarterly, semi-annually, you do these things. The cost of that and the lost production will actually pay creative dividends, but they will probably also pay productive dividends because people know that they aren't just carbon-based profit units that you as the leader don't care about. And one more bonus, publicly praise creative effort and collaboration, regardless of outcome, to encourage more of it. So by this, I mean, it's not about the outcome. This is essentially growth mindset and how to properly apply it, put into, let's call it creativity mindset. That is, publicly praise people for putting in creative effort, making creative things happen. This isn't about, yay, let's talk about all the creative things that were a success and then just be quiet or almost ashamed of creative failures. You're celebrating the creative effort. The same way growth mindset is not about celebrating the outcome, that is, you got a good mark on your test or you did well at work, but the fact that you put in the effort. You worked hard at that. That's great. You're focusing on effort when you're talking about growth mindset, usually in students and learning situations. In creative situations, you are praising the creative effort, not the creative outcome. And while you're praising them, if, God forbid, it happens to be one of those absolutely inevitable times when the creative effort was good, but the result was not, then you go, oh, well, we did this, and high five for having that idea and putting in that creative effort. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but here's what we as the group take this opportunity to praise in public. The person who originated that creative effort, you could say, here's what the department learned. Okay, let's give them a big hand. If that doesn't work with your work culture, fine, but praise them and say, you know, we have to really respect, appreciate, they did a great job and here's what they learned. Here's what we learned. As far as I'm concerned, is much better. We together, creative effort, which is always awesome. It's the effort we want. But what we learned was, in this case, this happened. Now we know how to do it better next time. Or high five. It was fantastic and very successful. Here's what we learned. In the second case, success actually teaches you far less than failure. There's always praise and a good, desirable outcome that you can praise publicly for and should if you want more of anything. The last part, please download my 7 Creative Habits resource guide to learn even more ways to enhance your bottom line and your employees' well-being. They have nothing to do with the ones I talked about today, but they're an extension of that work as ways you can improve creativity both in the workplace and in their home, in their private life, which benefits you as the leader when they get back to work. That's it. The link for that will be in the description. And finally, the last thing is, please click here or in the description to watch my recommended video, Framestorm Your Way to Superior Brainstorming. So framestorming is not brainstorming. It is something that precedes it, and research shows greatly enhances it. That's it for Crush It Club 293, Level Up Creative Workplace Culture. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.